The sight that met me on the other side was worse.
ഭീകരമായ കാഴ്ച. കാരണം ഈ
Mundakai
മുണ്ടക്കൈ
town
ടൗൺ
is
എന്ന്
a place
പറയുന്നത്
that is very familiar to me,
മുണ്ടക്കൈ ടൗൺ ഇല്ല.
and that
മുണ്ടക്കൈ
place,
ടൗൺ എന്ന്
with
പറഞ്ഞാൽ
all its surrounding
വീടുകളും
houses, had
പൂർണ്ണമായിട്ട്
disappeared without a trace.
അതായത്
Not even the ground remained.
അവിടെ മാമാവശേഷമായി നിൽക്കുന്ന കാഴ്ചയാണ്.
Noufal kept calling me continuously. What could I tell him? I told him they were all safe. In the end, he understood. It's all over, isn't it? He asked me. But I did not know the extent of what had happened. It is only when I got up in the morning and looked down from the hill that I realized.
In the early hours of July 30 last year, the hilly district of Wayanad, high on the western Ghats, was struck by a devastating landslide, perhaps the worst disaster to hit a place in Kerala. More than 255 lives were lost, with 44 people still missing. The landslide completely wiped off the villages of Mundakai and Churilmala from the face of the earth. 4 months later, a team from the week travelled to the location. What we witnessed was a people still struggling to come to terms with what had happened, not yet rid of their nightmares and not yet healed of their wounds. The morning after we reached, we go to after July 30, the bakery restaurant in the town of Mepadi owned by Kalathingal Noufal, who lost 11 members of his family, including his wife, 3 children and parents, in the landslide. At first glance, after July 30 looks like any other bakery in Kerala. At first glance, Noufal too is as nondescript as his restaurant. It's almost like he wishes to merge into the backdrop. He speaks in a low voice, but when he smiles, a pair of dimples come alive. Their appearance dims though as he narrates the story of what happened that fateful day. After his marriage, Noufal struggled financially. His work in construction with some farming on the side was not enough to make ends meet. 8 years ago, he left for Oman to join his nephew in the catering business. There he flourished, sent home most of his earnings, and settled his debt.
On the day of the landslide, I was talking to my family till 12:30 in the morning. They told me the rain had decreased and things were okay now.
Within 15 minutes of the landslide, which took place an hour later, a relative called to inform that his village of Mundakai had been washed away. Immediately he called his family, but their phones were not ringing. He kept calling them by turns in vain.
The area where I stayed in Mundakai, in front of the mosque, was considered to be one of the safest. Those who lived near the river, at the slightest danger, would seek refuge in the premises of the mosque. Not even in my wildest dream did I think that this area would get destroyed.
He started becoming scared when someone told him that the mosque a few meters above their home had collapsed. On the flight home, he was torn between hope and fear. On the one hand, he had been told that many people in Mundakai had sought refuge in a nearby resort, and he hoped this included his family. On the other, he suspected that since his family had been speaking with him till just before the landslide, they would not have made it to the resort.
They sent someone to see me off at the airport there. When I reached the airport here, a car was waiting to escort me to Wayanad. By then, I started suspecting that things were bad. They initially told me only my parents had died. The others had been rescued and were in the hospital, they said. Only when I reached here did I realize the extent of my loss. I haven't seen the bodies of my parents. By the time I came, they had been buried. The day I arrived, they found the bodies of my daughter and my niece. I have only seen their bodies. The rest of my family were identified through DNA samples. My wife, 2 children, my brother and his 2 children. My sister-in-law's body had been found right in the beginning.
According to Noufal, he's where he is today only because of his friends who brought him back to life.
My friends are my everything. They are the ones who brought me back to normalcy. They were with me throughout and provided all the help that I needed. The people I expected to help did not do so. But in reality, it is people who were mere acquaintances who helped me the most.
His first plan was to return to Oman, but before that, he had to get all the documents which he had lost. He only had his passport with him. And it was as he was preparing to leave that a friend's father suggested he start a business here. When an organization, the Kerala Nadvatul Mujahideen, offered to support him financially, he started seriously considering the possibility.
I was planning to return to the Gulf when my friend's father suggested I stay back and start a business. If you go, you will never come back, he told me. Here, I could find some organization to help me fund the business. Then, even I felt this was correct. If I went, there would be no one to keep alive the memory of my family. Anyway, what was the point in me returning to the Gulf? I had gone there and struggled only for my family, which turned out to be pointless. In one night, I lost everything. So why would I want to go back?
It's not for himself that he opened the restaurant. It's for his wife Sajna, whose dream this was.
I was never very interested in starting a restaurant. I have been in this field and I know the difficulties involved. I only did it for my wife, whose dream this was. She used to bake good cakes. She would do all the baking in the restaurant, she would say. It is her desire that I am fulfilling by starting this eatery.
Even today, it's not easy. He stays in a room below after July 30. He's in the restaurant at 6 a.m. and works there the whole day. And by the time he wraps up, it's usually 2 a.m. But he likes to keep himself busy to keep the memories at bay.
Everyone asks me why I named the restaurant after July 30. I did it to keep alive the memory of this incident. In a year or two, others will forget the disaster, let alone the date. But with a name like this, people will come here and remember. Even small children should ask and be told the story of the landslide.
On our way out, we talk with Noufal's friend K.U. Shafiq, who works as the cashier at the restaurant. He too had lost his home in Mundakai during the landslide, although he and his family were elsewhere then. In fact, everyone working in the restaurant are survivors of the disaster.
I had a shop in the airport. Noufal used to visit it on his way to the Gulf. He used to say that he wanted to start something on his own after returning from Mumbai. After the landslide, we encouraged him to start this eatery as a way to refresh his mind. All of his friends stayed with Noufal in a room in the nearby Apple Tower homestay. Because we all stayed together, we were able to help him recover. If we had stayed separately, this would not have happened. We could protect and care for him. Earlier, when he went somewhere alone, we used to get scared. Now, he has started healing, being busy with his business. It is now that even we are relieved. Earlier, we used to be very worried about him. He was a man who lived for his family. He was prospering in the Gulf and getting his affairs in order when this tragedy happened.
At the entrance of the restaurant is a large painting of the village of Mundakai as it used to be, full of lush trees and tiled houses. The Mundakai of our memory, goes the caption. Noufal, however, is unwilling to visit Mundakai with us. So we set off on our own, along with Sujata Mahadevan, a Mahila Congress leader from Mepadi. As we passed tea and coffee plantations on the 15-minute drive to Mundakai, Sujata describes to us her experience volunteering at a relief camp for 2 months after the landslide. Soon we reach Churalmala, a small sleepy village. There is still some sign of life and activity, with a few people lounging near dusty shops selling supplies and other essential goods. A 190-foot Bailey Bridge, erected by the Indian Army after the landslide to transport machinery and ambulances, connects Churalmala with Mundakai, now reduced to rubble. The barren land is pervaded by a dark silence. Half-destroyed homes are now deserted structures, without life and laughter. We see remains of the mosque near Noufal's home, but no trace of the home itself. Atop a small hill, near the mud-splattered wall of a destroyed house, are strewn some household items. Clothes, a pillow, a pot, remnants of some family's everyday life. Afterwards, we make our way to Puttumala, an uneven grassy terrain where many victims of the landslide, regardless of class, caste or religion, are buried. In death, it seems we are all one.
There is a burial site in Puttumala. All kinds of people, regardless of religion or background, are buried there. When my son grows up and sees people fighting in the name of religion or caste, I would like to take him to the site in Puttumala.
The landslide hit the villages of Mundakai, Churalmala and Punjarimattam in the early hours of July 30. When the bridge connecting Churalmala to Mundakai and Attamala collapsed, rescue personnel found it impossible to reach the families trapped there. Although there were allegations that deforestation and improper land use caused the landslide, Wayanad District Collector Megashri DR denies this.
I have interacted with a lot of experts who have come down to understand the disaster and the probable causes of it. So this is definitely not a man-made disaster. This is in that surroundings. We do not see much of a human habitation. It's a very simple kind of a town. We do not see any high-rise buildings, and there is no active quarrying 4-5 kilometers of that area. Also, major tree felling has not happened, so definitely this is something that is beyond the human intervention. So all the rumors that usually people tell that this is because of a lot of human interference in that area are something that we cannot agree in this case.
Next, we make our way to Dr. Moopan's Medical College, established 10 years ago, which is the nearest tertiary care center to the landslide-affected region. This is where the bulk of those injured in the disaster were brought for treatment. We go there to meet Dr. Jishnu Janardhanan, an assistant professor of psychiatry, to understand how the landslide impacted the mental health of the survivors.
What each of them reiterated was the bond they lost with the people close to them. A 13-year-old schoolgirl told me that she had lost 7 of her friends. She also lost her school. Her ambition was to become an IAS officer. But what was the point in continuing her education, she asked me. There was another man who lost all his friends. Every evening at 4, they all used to get together at the local tea shop. He broke down when telling me this. Another man lost his entire family. All of theirs were stories of deep loss.
As the sun begins to set, we head to the house of Noufal's sister E.T. Naushiba. Her home in Mundakai too had got washed away in the landslide when she, her husband, and 3 children had a narrow escape. Now she lives in a rented house near Mepadi. She says that all 4 of them, her sister, herself, and 2 brothers, grew up in penury. Their parents worked in the tea estates but did not earn much. She remembers how their mother used to come home late from work after they had all gone to bed. She would wake them up to serve dinner.
It was late at night, often after 10 pm, that we were fed. My mother would wake us up to serve dinner. All 4 of us would be fed from one single plate. Only Noufal would not get up and leave afterwards. He would continue to sit there for a long time, hoping to get something more.
Noufal's story is a heartbreaking one. To rebuild your life from scratch is painful, but to do it without the support and strength of your loved ones must be unbearable. And Noufal is not the only one. There are many others, like Mansoor, who lost everything in the landslide. These people need all the help they can get, both from us and the government, to bring back the joy and hope that make life worth living. And as I said back to Kochi, the words of Noufal's 13-year-old son Nihal, which he had written in a note for his father just before he returned to Oman, rang in my head. I love you, Uppa. You are my life. It was a reminder that not even death can destroy the power of love in our lives.